One more scroll, you told yourself, and the screen still glows against tired eyes. That glow isn't only light. A few cells in your eyes read it as daytime and quietly tell your brain it isn't time yet. Here's the part that changes it. Even after you finally drift off, that light can keep thinning the deepest sleep you never feel yourself losing. Welcome to Sleepy Science. So set the phone down. Let the room go dim around you. In the dark, now, those same cells are quieting, reading night at last. And somewhere behind your eyes, the signal to rest begins to rise. Tonight, we follow that signal. How a little evening light quietly reaches all the way into your deepest sleep. Every color you have ever seen arrives as light of a certain length. Red waves stretch long and lazy. Blue waves fall short and quick, carrying more energy near the violet edge of what your eyes can read. Screens lean heavily on this short blue band. Somewhere around 460 to 480 nanometers, because it makes whites look crisp and bright. And beneath everything we will explore tonight sits one quiet question. How does that thin ribbon of evening blue slip past your attention and gently loosen your grip on deep sleep? You do not feel it happening. Yet your body is already listening to the light, long before you decide the day is finally done. Sunlight looks white, but it is really every color woven together. When it meets our atmosphere, the shorter blue wavelengths scatter most widely, painting the daytime sky its familiar blue. This is why noon light feels so cool and awake. It is unusually rich in blue. For millions of years, a sky full of blue meant one simple thing to living bodies. It is daytime. Be alert. Evening told the opposite story. Its light sliding, warm and gold and low as the sun dropped. Your inner systems learned to read that shift like a clock face. The color of the light around you was never decoration. It was information, quietly telling you where you stood in the turning of a single day. For most of scientific history, the eye was understood as a camera and nothing more. Light entered through the lens, landed on the retina, and was turned into pictures the brain could use. Every discovery seemed to confirm it. A beautiful optical instrument built for seeing. But a camera only answers one question. What is out there? It says nothing about when. And your body, it turns out, is quietly obsessed with when. Somewhere in that same thin sheet of retinal tissue, another kind of sensing was happening, one that had little to do with images at all. The eye was keeping time as well as taking pictures, though no one yet knew to look for it. Two kinds of light catchers were known for well over a century. Rods are exquisitely sensitive, working in near darkness, giving you the dim grey world of night with no color at all. Cones need brighter light and come in three types, tuned roughly to red, green, and blue, and together they build the full palette of your daytime vision. Between them, rods and cones seem to explain everything the eye could do. They pass their signals inward through layers of cells toward the brain, and for generations this looked like the complete story of how you see. The picture felt finished. But finished pictures in science often hide a door that no one has yet thought to open. Then, near the start of this century, that door opened. Researchers studying mice found something that should not have been possible. Animals with no working rods and no working cones, fully blind in the ordinary sense, still adjusting their inner rhythms to light and dark. Something in the eye was detecting brightness without forming any image. Around 2002, the source was pinned down. A small, scattered population of cells in the retina that responded to light entirely on their own. They were not rods. They were not cones. They were a third class of photoreceptor, hidden in plain sight for 100 years, doing a job that vision had never once suspected. These cells carry a light-sensitive pigment of their own, named melanopsin. Most of the retina's known pigments live in rods and cones, but melanopsin sits somewhere unexpected, inside the retinal ganglion cells, the very neurons whose long fibers form the optic nerve. Normally, those ganglion cells simply relay messages from rods and cones toward the brain. A small fraction of them, though, hold melanopsin and can feel light directly, with no help from any neighbor. Their name captures it plainly. Intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. Intrinsically, meaning the light sensing lives within them. A messenger cell, it turned out, had quietly been a sensor all along, listening to the sky on its own terms. What makes these cells so unusual is their independence. Rods and cones hand their signals off, passing them through several relays before anything reaches the brain. The melanopsin cells skip that chain. Light strikes them, and they respond, generating their own slow electrical answer without waiting on any other cell. Because of this, they keep working even when the image-forming system fails entirely. In people who have lost rod and cone function to certain diseases and can no longer see at all, these cells often keep quietly registering light. The conscious picture goes dark. Yet somewhere beneath awareness, the eye keeps reporting whether it is day or night, faithfully, to a part of you that never stops keeping time. Each light catcher in the eye has a favorite color, a wavelength it answers to most strongly. Melanopsin's favorite sits close to 480 nanometers, a clear sky blue. This is no accident of biology. It is almost exactly the color that floods down from an open daytime sky. Over deep evolutionary time, these cells tuned themselves to the single most reliable signal that the sun was up. That particular shade of blue overhead. So when short blue wavelengths reach your eyes, melanopsin responds with quiet enthusiasm, as if the noon sky had opened above you. Warm reds and dim ambers barely stir it. It listens, most of all, for the blue that once meant morning. The proof of these cells' importance came from the darkness of blindness itself. Some people, and many laboratory mice, lose their rods and cones completely and can form no images whatsoever. By every ordinary measure, they cannot see. And yet, remarkably, their bodies still shift in step with the daily cycle of light. Their sleep timing, their hormones, their sense of day and night, all still tracking the sun. When researchers silenced the melanopsin cells as well, that final thread snapped, and the rhythms drifted free. This was the clearest sign yet that image and timing are separate senses, carried by separate cells. You can lose the picture entirely and still, somehow, know what hour the light belongs to. Gather what the eye has shown so far, and a second purpose comes into view. Alongside the familiar camera, the rods and cones that build your visible world, sits a quieter instrument that was never meant to make pictures at all. Its only task is to answer one question the camera cannot. Not what is out there, but when, in the day, this is. The eye, it turns out, is also a clock. And if that is true, then our question begins to turn. Perhaps evening screens do not disturb your sleep by tiring your vision. Perhaps they reach the eye's hidden timekeeper instead, and speak to it in the one language it was built to trust, the language of blue. Once the melanopsin cells catch the light, their message needs somewhere to go. It travels along a private pathway, a slender bundle of nerve fibers called the retinohypothalamic tract. Unlike the great optic pathways that carry vision to the back of the brain for seeing, this tract runs a shorter, more direct route inward and downward toward the brain's deep center. It does not join the stream that becomes conscious sight. It carries only one kind of news: how much light, of what color, is present now. Think of it as a dedicated line laid down for a single message about time. The eye speaks, this quiet wire listens, and the place it reaches is the keeper of your inner day. That destination is a tiny cluster of cells with a long name: the suprachiasmatic nucleus, tucked deep in the hypothalamus, just above the point where the optic nerves cross. It is astonishingly small, only around 20,000 neurons on each side, a speck you could hide beneath a grain of rice. Yet this speck is the master clock of your entire body. It sets the timing of sleep and waking, of body temperature rising and falling, of hormones released and withheld across the hours. Nearly every cell you own keeps some rhythm of its own. But this cluster is the conductor that keeps them all playing together. And its favorite cue, arriving down that quiet wire, is light. The remarkable thing about this master clock is that it does not need the outside world to keep time. Lift those cells into a dish, seal them away from any light or sound, and they go on pulsing in a steady rhythm close to a single day, entirely from within. The rhythm is built into the very machinery of the cells, written in loops of proteins that rise and fall over roughly 24 hours. So your sense of day and night is not simply painted onto you by the sun. It is generated inside you, an inner day that would keep turning even in total darkness. Light does not create the rhythm. Light only tells this inner clock exactly when to begin. there is a small imperfection in that inner clock, and it matters more than it seems. Left entirely alone, the human rhythm does not run to precisely 24 hours. For most people, it drifts a little longer, closer to 24 and a quarter. A few extra minutes each day may sound harmless, but without correction they would pile up, sliding your nights later and later until your body clock fell out of step with the sun completely. This is why the clock is reset each day, gently nudged back into line. The tool it uses for that nudge is light entering the eye. Each morning, the bright sky quietly trims away the drift and anchors you, once more, to the real turning of the world. Not all light reaches the clock with equal weight. Timing decides everything. The same brightness can push your rhythm in opposite directions, depending on when it arrives. Scientists have mapped this into what they call a response curve, a kind of sensitivity schedule across the day. Light in the biological morning tends to pull the clock earlier, coaxing you toward earlier sleep and earlier waking. Light in the biological evening and night does the reverse, sliding the whole rhythm later. In the middle of the day, the clock barely reacts at all. So the eye is not merely asking how bright the world is. It is asking a subtler question. How bright? And at what hour? Because the hour changes what the brightness means. Picture the clock as something that can be gently pushed forward or held back. Morning light, rich in blue, presses it forward, advancing your rhythm. So sleep and waking arrive a little sooner. This is why a walk under an open morning sky can help a tired body find its footing again. Evening light does the opposite, falling on the eye when the inner day is winding down. It delays the clock, nudging your whole rhythm later into the night. Your body reads late blue light as a signal that the day is not yet over, and quietly postpones the machinery of sleep. The same light, then, can be a steadying hand in the morning and an unsettling one after dark. The melanopsin cells sense light in a way quite unlike the rest of the eye. Rods and cones are quick and restless, firing at the smallest flicker and falling silent just as fast. Perfect for catching motion and fine change. The melanopsin cells are slow and patient by contrast. They take their time to respond, and once lit, they hold their signal steadily for as long as the light remains. They are not built to catch a passing detail. They are built to measure the overall glow of the world and how long it lasts. Where vision asks what is moving, these cells ask something calmer and broader. How much light is there? And has it lingered here for a while? Because they respond slowly and steadily, the melanopsin cells act less like a camera and more like a light meter left running all day. They add light up over time, reporting the overall dose rather than any single moment. A brief flash tells them little. A steady wash of brightness, held for many minutes, speaks to them clearly. This is exactly the kind of information a clock would want. Not the fleeting shimmer of a passing car, but the long, honest signal of a sky that has been bright for hours. In this patience lies their purpose. They are not trying to see the world sharply. They are trying to judge, slowly and reliably, whether it is truly day. These timekeeping cells are not a single uniform group. Researchers have found several kinds, often labeled from M1 through M6, each with slightly different wiring and sensitivity. And they do not report only to the master clock. Their fibers branch out to many destinations in the brain, regions that govern the size of your pupils, your level of alertness, even circuits tied to mood. So the light gathered by melanopsin does more than set the hour. It ripples outward, touching how awake you feel and how your inner state is colored. A single, quiet class of cells, once thought not to exist at all, turns out to send its news of light into many rooms of the brain at once. You can watch one of these cells' effects in a mirror. When bright light meets your eye, your pupil shrinks, the familiar reflex that guards the retina from glare. The fast part of that response belongs to rods and cones. But there is a slower, more stubborn part, one that keeps the pupil small for as long as strong light lingers. And that steady clamp is driven by melanopsin. Shine a blue rich light, then take it away, and the pupil stays contracted for a while, as if reluctant to forget. In that small lag, you are seeing the timekeeper at work, not reacting to an image, but reporting, patiently, that the world around you is still full of light. The reach of this light sensing goes beyond the clock and the pupil. When blue-enriched light enters the eye in the evening, people often feel more alert, their reactions quickening, their sense of sleepiness thinning, and this can happen even in those who cannot form images at all. The melanopsin signal appears to nudge the brain's arousal systems directly, a wakefulness that arrives through light rather than through thought. It is a gift by day, helping you feel bright and present under a morning sky. After dark, that same alerting pull works against the tide of sleep. The light does not merely delay a clock. It can lift the whole mind a notch further from rest than it wants to be. From the master clock, the light's message travels onward to a small gland deep in the brain, the pineal, which makes the hormone of darkness, melatonin. As night falls and the eye reports dimness, the clock releases the pineal to pour melatonin quietly into the blood, and a soft tide of sleepiness begins to rise. But when blue-rich light still reaches the eye late in the evening, the clock reads it as daytime and holds that tide back. Melatonin's rise is delayed, blunted, pushed later into the night. The chain is long but unbroken. Light in the eye. Message to the clock. A hand laid over the gland that would otherwise be gently ushering you towards sleep. It does not take a blazing light to register with these cells. A quiet modesty is part of their design. An open sky at noon can pour tens of thousands of units of brightness onto the eye, while an ordinary lit room in the evening offers only a small fraction of that. Yet even that indoor glow, dim as it seems against the sun, is enough for melanopsin to notice, especially when it carries blue. Your eyes evolved under skies and firelight, where nights were genuinely dark. Against that ancient backdrop, the soft electric light of a modern evening is not nothing to the timekeeper. It is a faint, steady daylight, quietly insisting that the day has not yet ended. Not every blue light speaks to the clock with the same voice. What the melanopsin cells register depends on several things at once: the exact wavelengths present, how intense the light is, how long it lasts, and the hour at which it arrives. A brief, dim glance at a warm screen is not the same as an hour bathed in cold blue brightness. How large the effect truly is, for any one person, on any one night, remains an open and honestly debated question in the science. Bodies differ, and so do their sensitivities. What is not in doubt is the pathway itself. The eye can carry evening light to the clock. How loudly it speaks is where the careful measuring still continues. Step back now and see what these first facts have quietly assembled. The eye holds two instruments in one: a camera for seeing, and beside it a patient clock that reads the color and the dose of light to answer a single question. What time is it in the world? That clock was tuned, across ages, to trust blue as the signal of day. And so our question has turned once more. Evening screens may trouble your sleep not because they strain your sight, but because they hand your timekeeper a small, convincing scrap of morning. What we have not yet followed is what happens next. Down the chain, inside the sleeping brain, where that misread hour is paid for. Your eyes have read light with you this whole hour, and something in you has already begun to settle. A soft tap to subscribe helps another restless mind find this quiet doorway too. Now let your gaze loosen, one sleepy soul at a time. Right now, behind your eyes, those patient cells are still doing their slow work, reading the light of this very room, judging, without any effort from you, how much of the day is left inside it. You cannot feel them the way you feel your breath, and yet they are the reason the dimness around you is beginning to register as evening. The reason a soft heaviness is gathering at the edges of your sight. Let the light in the room stay low. There is nothing to watch, nothing to decide. Your timekeeper is already listening for the dark, already turning toward it. What it does with that message, how a quiet signal becomes the deep tide of sleep, is where we drift next. Soften your eyes. Let them believe the night. You have already met the messenger at the end of that chain. Melatonin, the hormone the pineal gland releases as the light around you fades. It is worth pausing on what it truly is. Deep in the center of the brain, that pea-sized gland does not force sleep the way a sedative would. Melatonin is quieter than that. A signal passed to every cell that says the day is ending and the long night has begun. Under natural conditions, its level climbs through the evening, crests in the small hours, and fades before dawn. It is less a switch than a slow, spreading tide of darkness moving gently through you. Melatonin, though, is only one half of what carries you into sleep. Alongside this clock-driven signal runs a second, simpler force, a pressure to sleep that builds the longer you stay awake. Through every waking hour, a molecule called adenosine gathers in the brain, and with it a slow, mounting heaviness. By late evening, the two should agree. The pressure is high, and the clock, reading darkness, says the hour has come. Sleep arrives most easily when both align. It is worth holding this in mind, because evening light does not touch the pressure at all. It works only on the clock, and can quietly pull the two out of step with each other. It is worth being clear about what deep sleep actually is, since it is the rest most at stake tonight. Beneath the lighter stages, the brain can sink into long, slow electrical waves, the deepest, least wakeful state you pass through in a night. This is the sleep that does the heavy repair. Tissues mend. The day's memories are sorted and stored, and the brain quietly clears the waste it gathered while awake. You feel none of it happening, and you cannot summon it by wanting it. It arrives on its own terms, shaped by how long you have been awake and by the hour your clock believes it to be. Both of those can be moved. So the depth of your sleep leans on a kind of agreement, the pressure of a long day meeting a clock that has correctly read the dark. Melatonin is how the clock keeps its side of that bargain, rising on time to usher the whole sequence forward. When it arrives when it should, sleep opens smoothly and its deepest chapter falls where it belongs. When it comes late, the entire night is nudged out of place. And the single thing most able to make it late is light in the eye after dusk, which is exactly where the rest of these facts now turn, following that delay down into the shape of your rest. When bright evening light reaches your eyes, the most immediate effect is suppression. The clock reads the brightness, decides that night has not yet come, and slows the release of melatonin that had been quietly building. Studies measuring the hormone in the blood have found that ordinary room light in the hours before bed can push melatonin down substantially compared with dim conditions, and brighter or bluer light can suppress it further still. The exact amount varies from one person to the next and from study to study, but the direction is consistent. Your body was preparing its night signal, and the light gently turned the volume back down. Suppression is only half the story, and perhaps the smaller half. Evening light does something more lasting than simply lowering melatonin in the moment. It shifts the timing of the whole rhythm, pushing the hormone's natural rise toward a later hour, an effect scientists call a phase delay. Imagine easing the hands of a clock backward. The following evening, your body may not begin its wind down at the usual time, because you have taught it that darkness comes later than it truly does. This is part of why a few late nights under bright light can leave you feeling faintly out of step with the world for days afterward. Sleep scientists have a precise way of finding where your inner night begins. In a dim room, they measure the exact moment melatonin starts to climb, a marker known as dim light melatonin onset. In healthy people, it usually appears a couple of hours before habitual sleep. When researchers expose volunteers to a few hours of bright evening light, this onset tends to arrive later, often by roughly half an hour or more, though the figure shifts with brightness, color, and the individual. It is a small-sounding delay, yet it means the doorway to sleep, the moment your body first whispers that it is ready, has been quietly moved deeper into the night. Consider what a delayed melatonin rise actually feels like from the inside. Sleepiness is not something you simply decide upon. It arrives on a tide of chemistry. And melatonin is part of that tide. When its onset is pushed later, the familiar heaviness in your eyes and the softening of your thoughts arrive later too. You lie down at your usual hour, but your body has not yet been given permission to let go. So you wait, perhaps restless, perhaps reaching for the screen to pass the time, unaware that the very glow in your hands is part of why the wave of drowsiness has not yet reached the shore. Light does more than delay your night signal. It actively wakes you. Beyond its effect on melatonin, bright light in the evening acts as a direct alerting signal to the brain, nudging you toward wakefulness, much as a strong coffee might. People exposed to bright or blue-enriched light at night often report feeling more awake, and measures of their brain activity tend to agree. This made perfect sense for our ancestors. Light meant day, and day meant alertness. But in a lit-up bedroom, it works against you, so that at the very moment you most want to feel drowsy, your surroundings are quietly insisting that you stay awake a while longer. Your deepest sleep is not spread evenly across the night. The richest, slowest brain waves, the ones that do so much of the body's repair, gather most heavily in the first hours after you fall asleep. This is where the delay begins to cost you. If evening light pushes your sleep onset later while your morning alarm stays fixed, that precious early night window is shortened from one end. You may still sleep, but you enter that deep, restorative phase later and can spend less time within it. The hours are not simply moved. Some of the most valuable ones can quietly slip out of the night altogether, unnoticed until morning. Something happens to your body's warmth each evening that you may never have noticed. As night approaches, your core temperature begins a slow, deliberate fall, and this cooling is part of how sleep arrives. Melatonin itself helps guide the descent by relaxing your blood vessels and letting heat escape through your skin. Bright evening light interferes with this quiet ritual. By suppressing and delaying melatonin, it can slow the drop in core temperature, keeping your body a fraction warmer and more alert than it should be at that hour. Sleep tends to come most easily on a falling temperature, so a body kept warm by light is a body gently kept from rest. There is a rhythm to your stress chemistry as well, and it too listens for the light. Cortisol, the hormone that helps rouse you in the morning, normally ebbs to its lowest point in the late evening, clearing the way for sleep. Some research suggests that bright light late at night can blunt this natural evening decline, leaving a little more alertness in the system than the hour calls for. The findings here are gentler and less settled than those for melatonin, so it is fair to hold them lightly. Still, the pattern fits a larger truth. your body reads light as a cue not only for sleep, but for waking readiness. The cost of a light-shifted night does not stay in the night. When your deep sleep is delayed or trimmed, morning often carries the bill. You may wake feeling as though you never fully arrived in sleep. A heavy, foggy sensation that lingers past the alarm, sometimes called sleep inertia. Thoughts feel slower to gather, moods a little more fragile, the first hour harder than it should be. It is easy to blame the coffee, or the weather, or simply yourself. But some of that next day grogginess traces back to the evening before, to a stream of blue light that quietly rearranged the architecture of your rest. Not everyone's clock listens to light with the same sensitivity, and this is worth holding in mind. Studies that measure melatonin suppression in individuals find a remarkably wide spread. Some people's hormone levels barely flinch under a given evening light, while others drop steeply under the very same conditions. Age, genetics, the size of your pupils, even how much bright daylight you gathered earlier can all shift how loudly the evening reaches you. So the honest picture is not a single number that fits everyone, but a range. If you have ever wondered why a late-night screen wrecks a friend's sleep yet seems to spare yours, this variation is part of the answer. Look back across the last stretch, and a single mechanism comes into focus. Blue light does not attack your deep sleep directly. It works through a messenger. By suppressing melatonin and nudging its onset later, it moves the doorway to sleep further into the night. And because your deepest, slowest sleep clusters in those first hours, a later start can quietly shave the richest rest from the edge of your night. The question we began with is turning. It may be less about how much light steals, and more about how one small hormonal delay ripples outward into the whole shape of your rest. Where that ripple travels next is where we go from here. Notice, for a moment, how far the evening has traveled inward since we began. The facts have grown slower, and perhaps you have too. You're breathing a little longer now, the space between your thoughts a little wider. Nothing here asks to be remembered. There is no test waiting at the end of the night. Only the gentle unwinding of one idea into the next. Let one full breath rise and fall, without hurrying it along. And when it settles, we will drift on together, deeper into the quiet science of how darkness returns you to rest. Start with what the evidence firmly supports. Light in the evening, from almost any bright source, can suppress the hormone melatonin, the quiet chemical signal that tells your body night has arrived. Bright light late in the day can also nudge your internal clock later, so both sleep and morning drift back. This part isn't controversial. It has been shown across decades of careful studies. What matters here is the honest shape of it. The core claim is solid. Evening light really can delay your body's slow slide toward deep sleep. The debate that follows tonight isn't about whether this happens. It is about how much, and exactly what to blame. Why did blue light, specifically, become the villain? The answer sits in a special set of cells in your eye. identified only around the turn of this century. These cells don't help you see shapes, they simply report how bright the world is. And they are most sensitive to short wavelength light in the blue range, near 480 nanometers. When that light reaches them in the evening, they signal your clock that daytime still lingers. So the biology is real. Bluish light does have an outsized effect on this particular pathway. But being real and being the whole story are two different things. And this is exactly where the popular version begins to overreach. Here is the first honest complication. Those clock signaling cells respond strongly to blue. Yes, but they also respond to how much light there is overall. A dim warm lamp and a bright warm lamp are not equal. Raw intensity carries real weight. Several researchers now argue that for a typical screen held at arm's length, the sheer brightness and the length of exposure may matter as much as the color temperature. In other words, a very bright amber screen could disturb you more than a dim blue-white one. The wavelength is one dial. Brightness is another. And it is a dial the simple just block blue advice quietly ignores. Consider how many alarming studies were actually run. To reliably suppress melatonin in a laboratory, researchers often used light far brighter than an ordinary phone at night, sometimes many times brighter, aimed steadily at the eyes. A phone at a low evening brightness, glanced at from a foot or two away, delivers a far smaller dose. Some studies find that a few hours of dim phone use shifts melatonin only modestly, if at all. This does not mean screens are harmless. It means that the size of the light effect, for real nighttime habits rather than lab conditions, is genuinely debated, and often smaller than the headlines would have you believe. Now the part the light story tends to leave out entirely. A screen isn't only a lamp, it is a doorway to things that stir you up. The message that raises your pulse. The argument in the comments. The next episode ending on a cliff. These engage your mind and your emotions. And an alert. A roused brain resists sleep regardless of wavelength. Some sleep scientists suspect this mental and emotional activation explains a large share of screen-related sleeplessness. It is hard to separate cleanly from the light itself, since the two arrive together. But it is quite plausible that what keeps you awake is often the content, not the color. There is a simpler culprit still, one that needs no biology at all. Screens are engineered to hold you, and the most ordinary harm they do is to keep you up past the hour you meant to sleep. Every extra episode, every further scroll, is time subtracted directly from the night. Researchers call this time displacement. And for many people, it may be the single largest way devices cost them rest. Not through particles of light reaching a hormone, but through minutes, and then hours, quietly slipping away. The clock on the wall, in this view, does more damage to your sleep than the color of the glow ever could. So what about the amber glasses sold to block it all? Here, the evidence turns genuinely disappointing. A large review of the research, published in recent years, gathered the trials on blue-blocking lenses and found no clear, consistent proof that they improve sleep or ease eye strain for most people. Some small studies hint at a modest benefit for certain sleepers, others show nothing at all. The honest summary is that the glasses are far from the reliable fix their marketing suggests. If they seem to help you, that is real and worth keeping. But the science does not yet stand firmly behind them, and it is only fair to say so plainly. The same caution applies to your phone's night mode. Shifting the screen toward warm amber feels responsible, and it does reduce the blue your eyes receive. Yet when researchers tested whether that shift actually improves sleep, the results were underwhelming. In one study, people using the warm-tinted night setting slept no better than those with it switched off, and both groups slept worse than people who simply put the phone down altogether. It is a telling result. Changing the color while keeping the same bright, absorbing habit did not rescue the night. The setting isn't harmful, but treating it as real protection may be a comfortable illusion. Step back, and a more trustworthy picture appears. What holds up across the evidence is unglamorous. Dimming your lights and screens in the hours before bed, ending stimulating use earlier, and protecting the time you have set aside for sleep. Lowering brightness addresses the intensity dial. Stopping earlier addresses both the arousal and the lost minutes at once. These do more, and more reliably, than any tinted lens or filter aimed only at wavelength. It is a less satisfying answer than a single thing to blame or a single gadget to buy. But it is the one the research can actually support, and the one most likely to give your body back its depth. And so, the question we began with quietly turns in our hands. We asked how blue light steals your deep sleep. But the honest answer is that blue light is only one thief among several, and rarely the boldest. The color plays a real part, the sheer brightness plays another, and the pull to stay awake, stirred and scrolling well past your bedtime, may take the most of all. What steals your deep sleep is not a single wavelength to be filtered away. It is the whole, lit, absorbing evening, and that is a gentler, more hopeful truth, because so much of it is already yours to set down. You've just heard that the thing keeping you awake was never one simple villain, only the whole bright, humming evening, and much of it within your own hands to quiet. So notice, right now, whatever glow or hum still lingers in you. A thought that won't dim. A small readiness behind the eyes. You don't have to solve it, or filter it, or get it right. You can simply let it grow dimmer, the way a room does when a light is finally turned low. The pull to stay awake, that alert, lit feeling, can be set down here, the same way you might set a phone face down at the end of a long day. Let the evening inside you go dark and easy. Let the brightness fall away by degrees. Nothing forced. Nothing left to fix. The quieter half of the night is only beginning. The light in your home tonight is not the light your ancestors knew. For most of human history, evenings glowed orange, firelight, candle, the low red of embers, all of it poor in the blue wavelengths your inner clock reads most closely. Modern LED bulbs and screens shifted that balance, pouring out a whiter light richer in the short wavelengths near 480 nanometers. Your eyes barely notice the difference. Your circadian system notices a great deal. The evening you sit in now would have looked to an older biology, remarkably like a pale afternoon that never quite ends. Consider the screen a few inches from your face. A phone at full brightness throws perhaps 30 to 50 lux toward your eyes. Modest compared to the many thousands of lux beneath an open sky. By that measure, a screen is a dim light. But your clock does not only count brightness, it counts nearness, wavelength, and how long the light lingers. Held close for an hour in an otherwise dark room, even a faint glow can reach the cells that whisper the time of day inward. The screen is small. Its massage, repeated across the evening, is not. Timing, it turns out, matters more than intensity. The same light that means almost nothing at noon can shift your entire night when it arrives near your natural bedtime. Your sensitivity to light is not constant. It rises through the evening, peaking in the hours before and after you would normally fall asleep. Light in that window carries the most weight, nudging your internal clock later and delaying the quiet rise of melatonin. A bright morning may barely register as disruptive. The identical brightness at 11 at night speaks in a far louder voice to the part of you keeping time. There is also the matter of how long. A brief glance at a lit screen, checking the time, reading a single message, passes through your system like a pebble through water, leaving little trace. But light held steady across an hour or two accumulates. The cells that track daylight respond not to instants but to sustained exposure, integrating brightness over time, the way a slow tide fills a bay. This is why an evening spent bathed in gentle screen glow can matter more than a sudden bright flash. Duration, quiet and unremarkable, does much of the shifting you never feel happening. Not all colors of light speak to your clock equally. Deep in your retina sit rare cells tuned most keenly to a band of blue-green light near 480 nanometers, the color of a clear midday sky. This is no accident. Over millions of years, that wavelength became the body's most trusted signal for daytime. Warm reds and dim ambers barely stir these cells. Cool white light, rich in blue, stirs them strongly. Modern lighting and displays, engineered to look crisp and bright, tend to be generous in exactly the wavelengths your ancient timekeeper reads as the sun still being up. Here something unexpected enters. Two people can sit in the very same room, beneath the very same lamp, and their inner clocks can respond in wildly different measure. In careful studies, the light level needed to halve one person's melatonin barely touched another's. Differences spanning more than 50-fold from one individual to the next. There is, in other words, no single dose of evening light that means the same thing to everyone. Your neighbor may read on a bright screen and sleep untroubled, while the same glow unsettles you. The light is identical. The eye receiving it is not. Where does such variation come from? Part lies in your genes. Small differences in the pigments and circuits that carry light's message inward. Part lies in your recent past. Spend a day flooded with bright outdoor light, and your system grows a little deaf to the dimmer light of evening, better shielded against its pull. Spend a day indoors under weak lighting, and the evening's glow lands with more force. Your sensitivity tonight is not a fixed trait, but a moving thing, shaped by the light you met this morning and the light you have gathered across all your days. A child's eyes drink light differently than yours. The young lens is remarkably clear, passing short blue wavelengths through to the retina almost unhindered. In one study, the same evening light suppressed melatonin in young children roughly twice as strongly as in adolescents. The developing clock is simply more open, more easily told that the day is not yet over. This is part of why bright screens close to bedtime can weigh so heavily on the young. Not because their willpower is weaker, but because the very windows their light passes through are wider and clearer than your own. At the other end of a life, the lens tells a different story. With the passing decades, it slowly yellows, thickening into a gentle amber filter that absorbs much of the incoming blue. An older eye may let only a fraction of that short wavelength light reach the clock beneath. There is a quiet irony here. The same aging that scatters and dims your sight also shields your inner timekeeper from evening light's full message. Yet the trade is uneven, with less light reaching the clock by day as well. The rhythm can grow faint, harder to hold steady, more easily lost. Light is not only a thief of sleep, timed well. It is sleep's quiet ally. The very wavelengths that delay your clock at night will, in the morning, do the opposite, pulling your rhythm earlier, sharpening the boundary between day and dark. Bright light, soon after waking, tells your system, clearly and early, that the day has begun, which helps the evening's melatonin arrive on time hours later. The same blue that unsettles a late night can steady a morning. Light, it seems, has no fixed character. Its meaning depends entirely on when in your day it falls. Scientists map this with something called a phase response curve, a simple picture of how light moves your clock depending on its timing. Light in the early morning shifts your rhythm earlier. Light in the late evening shifts it later. Light in the deep middle of the night can push it either way. The curve is smooth, continuous, the same shape found across countless living things. What it reveals is gentle but firm. Your body is not asking whether light is present, but when. A single lamp becomes an advance or a delay depending only on the hour you meet it. Step outside on an ordinary cloudy day and you stand in perhaps 10,000 lux, a flood of brightness that indoor rooms at a few hundred lux cannot begin to match. This daytime light is protective. The more of it you gather, the more firmly your clock is anchored to the true day, and the less power evening light holds to unsettle you. Much of modern life quietly starves us of it, moving from dim home to dim office beneath a sky we rarely meet. The trouble may be less our bright nights than our surprisingly dim days. Picture the contrast your ancestors lived inside. Brilliant days and near total dark by night. A difference of many thousandfold between noon and midnight. Now picture the modern version. A day rarely brighter than a few hundred lux. A night rarely darker than a soft electric glow. The mountain has become a hill. Your clock reads not the absolute level of light, but the contrast between day and night. And when that contrast flattens, the signal grows faint. The trouble is not only the light you add at night, but the light you fail to gather while the sun is high. Some people live against this rhythm by necessity. Nurses, drivers, factory workers, and others who labor through the night ask their clocks to read midnight as noon. Week after week, the body resists. Sleep grows shorter and lighter by day. Alertness sags in the small hours, no matter how bright the workplace. Researchers have found that long-term circadian disruption of this kind travels with real costs to health, which is why sustained night work is treated with genuine caution. It is perhaps the clearest evidence of how deeply light's timing is written into us, and how the body aches when that timing is forced. Gather what these facts have shown, and a pattern rises. Evening light does not act on everyone alike, nor by brightness alone. It works through timing, through nearness, through eyes that differ from one person to the next, which quietly changes the question we began with. Perhaps blue light does not simply steal deep sleep the way a hand takes an object. Perhaps it does something stranger. It moves the hour at which sleep is meant to arrive, so that depth comes late, or shallow, or not quite when the body expects. What that displacement costs the sleeping brain is the thread the remaining facts follow. It helps to be precise about what evening light actually touches. The melatonin it suppresses is not sleep itself, but a signal, a chemical dusk the body releases to announce that night has come. Dim that signal, and sleep does not vanish, it drifts later, its opening scene delayed. Much of what feels like light stealing your rest is really light postponing it, nudging the whole sequence back so that you lie awake a while longer before the curtain finally falls. The distinction matters, because it means the harm is rarely destruction. More often, it is simply delay. And the deep sleep itself, here honesty asks for care. The slow, restorative waves of the night's early hours are governed largely by how long you have been awake, not directly by the color of your evening lamp. Light's main mischief is to push your sleep later, which can trim those precious early hours when deep sleep runs richest. The theft, where it happens, is often indirect, not blue light reaching into slow-wave sleep and thinning it, but blue light moving the whole night, so that its deepest chapter arrives shortened, or crowded against the coming morning. This is why the remedies sold against blue light give such mixed results. Amber glasses and warm screen filters do lower the short wavelength light reaching your eyes, and in careful trials they can shift melatonin a little earlier. Yet the gains in actual sleep are often small. Minutes, not hours, and they vary from person to person as much as everything else here does. The honest summary is modest. Reducing evening blue light tends to help a little, most reliably for those most sensitive to it. It is a gentle lever, not a switch, and worth holding to its true size. Light's reach extends past sleep into mood, though the ground here is softer and best walked with care. The same circuits that carry time to your clock also touch the brain's centers of feeling, which is why bright morning light can lift a heavy winter mood, and why light therapy is offered for certain seasonal lows. Whether ordinary evening screens meaningfully darken mood is far less settled. What seems fair to say is that a clock kept steady. Bright days, dim nights, tends to accompany steadier feeling, while a clock chronically confused more often keeps company with unease. There are hints, too, that light at night brushes against the body's handling of energy. In one controlled study, a single night spent under moderate room light left sleepers with a slightly faster heart and a measurable dip in insulin sensitivity by morning. Larger patterns among shift workers point the same direction, toward metabolism that runs less smoothly when the clock is displaced. These findings are real but young, and their everyday size is still being weighed. It is enough, for now, to notice that the reach of evening light may extend quietly past sleep, into rhythms you never think to watch. It would be easy, after all this, to cast light as the villain of the night. But that reading misses the larger truth. Light is not the enemy of your sleep. It is the very thing that makes sleep possible. The signal that carves your day into waking and rest. Without it, your rhythm would drift, unmoored, a little later each day. The trouble is never light itself, but light out of place. The right signal at the wrong hour. What you seek is not darkness as escape, but light and dark, each return to their proper season within the turning of a day. Once you see it this way, small things become quietly powerful. Meeting bright light early, a walk outside, a window at breakfast, strengthens the very rhythm that will carry you towards sleep at night. Letting the evening dim, softening lamps toward amber, drawing the last hour away from the brightest screens. None of this is a cure, and none needs to be. Each is simply a way of returning the contrast your body was built to read. You are not fighting light. You are helping it fall where it belongs, so that darkness, when it comes, is believed. Because sensitivity varies so widely, the wisest guide is not a rule, but attention to yourself. Some people can read on a bright screen and drop easily into sleep. Others feel a single lit hour keep them turning long past tiredness. Neither is a failing. If evening light seems to hold you awake, you are likely among the more sensitive, and gentler nights will serve you well. If it does not, you need not fear a glow you handle with ease. The science offers a range, not a verdict, and within that range, your own quiet experience is the most honest instrument you own. Notice how the story has slowly turned. We began among bulbs and screens, wavelengths and lux. the hard measures of light as a physical thing. Yet what those measures keep pointing to is not really the light at all, but the timekeeper it speaks to, a small, ancient rhythm humming beneath thought, reading each glow as a word in a language older than words. The screen is only the messenger. The clock is what listens. And the clock asks for little. Bright when the world is bright. Dark when the world is dark. And a life that lets the two stay honest. So here, at last, the understanding stands whole. It isn't the screen that steals your sleep so much as the clock it fools. Late light does not reach into the night and tear away its depth. It leans close to that ancient timekeeper and whispers a single false word. Daytime, to a brain that is trying, quietly, to find the dark. Everything else follows from that whisper. The delayed melatonin, the postponed depth, the rhythm nudged a little off its true hour. Blue light is not a thief in the room. It is a small voice telling the wrong time. Right now, in the dark, behind your eyes, that small timekeeper is still listening. No screen is speaking to it now. No lamp is leaning close. For the first time in hours, the only word it hears is the true one. Night. You don't have to send that message. You already have, simply by letting the light fall away. The melatonin these facts described is rising now, unhurried, the way it was always meant to at this hour. There is nothing to correct, nothing to fix. The clock beneath your thoughts knows this rhythm. It has kept it since long before you were born. Let the darkness be believed. Let your body agree with the hour. We're almost there now. Here is the gentlest place to begin. In the last hour or two before bed, let your lights come down low. You don't need darkness, only a softening. When the bright ceiling lights give way to a single warm lamp, your eyes send a quieter signal inward, and your body reads it as evening arriving. Dimming is the simplest thing you can offer your sleep, and often it is the one that changes the most. Color matters as much as brightness. The cells in your eyes that keep time are most sensitive to blue, the cool light of midday. Warm light, amber, gold, the color of a low flame, barely stirs them. So when you shift your evening bulbs toward warmth, or let a screen glow orange, you are speaking to your inner clock in a softer language, one that gently says, the day is done and rest may come. It isn't only which color, but how much. A dim, warm screen disturbs far less than a brilliant one held close to your face. Lowering the brightness on your phone, your tablet, your television, quietly lowers the dose of light your clock receives. You don't have to give up the things you love in the evening. Often, it is enough to simply turn them down, until the glow feels more like moonlight than noon. Distance is your friend in the evening. Light fades quickly as it travels, so a lamp across the room touches you far more gently than a screen a few inches away. Placing your lights low, near the floor or at the level of your hands, keeps the brightness out of the upper field of your vision, where your timekeeping cells listen most closely. Small arrangements of space can soften a whole room's effect on your sleep. A screen curfew helps, though it need not be strict. Even setting your devices down 30 or 60 minutes before bed gives your mind a quiet runway towards sleep. If a full curfew feels impossible, that is all right. The goal is not perfection, but a gentle taper. A little less light, a little less scrolling. As the evening deepens, any distance you place between the screen and the pillow is a kindness to your rest. Sometimes it is not the light at all, but what the light carries. A tense message, an endless feed, a story that will not let you go. These wake the mind long after the screen goes dark. Choosing calmer things in the last hour, something slow and finished rather than infinite, can matter as much as any filter. The evening asks for content that lets you set it down, not content that holds you open. Night mode is a small helper, not a cure. When your screen warms its colors after sunset, it trims a little blue from the light reaching your eyes. And that is genuinely kind. But the effect is modest, and a bright, warm screen still shines. Think of night mode as one gentle layer among several, helpful beside dimming and distance, but not a spell that undoes a glowing evening all on its own. Amber glasses that block blue light can help some people, in a quiet way. Worn in the last hour or two, they filter part of the signal your clock is most tuned to. The research is mixed and gentle. A modest benefit for some, little for others. If they help you, wear them without worry. If they don't, you have lost nothing. They are a minor tool, best paired with dimmer, warmer surroundings. Here is the truth that often surprises people. The strongest thing you can do for your night happens in the morning. Bright light early in the day anchors your inner clock, setting the hour when melatonin will rise again that evening. A well-lit morning makes the body more certain about when night should come. If you tend only one moment of light, let it be the first. The morning is the real lever. Morning light is far brighter than it seems. Even a cloudy sky outdoors pours down thousands of times more light than a well-lit room. A few minutes outside after waking, on a step, by a window thrown open, on a slow walk, floods your clock with the signal it most wants. Indoor light, however bright it looks, is dim by comparison. The sky is the medicine, and it is free every single morning. Your clock loves a rhythm it can trust, waking near the same time each day, and meeting light soon after, teaches your body when to expect the night. The evening's melatonin arrives more faithfully when the morning's light is steady. You are not disciplining yourself so much as offering a pattern your biology can lean on. Even on slow weekends, a roughly steady rising keeps the whole gentle machinery running smoothly. When sleep finally comes, let the room be dark. Heavy curtains, a soft eye mask, a hand over the glowing clock. These keep stray light from reaching you through the thin skin of your eyelids. Even closed, your eyes still sense brightness, and a dark room lets your deepest sleep run undisturbed. Darkness is not something to fear here. It is the quiet your body has been waiting for all day. Even faint light through the night can lighten sleep a little. Studies find that a room left dimly lit keeps the body subtly more alert, the heart a touch quicker, than a room kept dark. The effect is small, and no cause for worry. Only a gentle reason to dim the hallway. Cover the standby lights, and let the darkness be complete. Your sleeping self rests most deeply in the least light. There is a reason firelight feels restful. For nearly all of human history, evenings were lit by flame. Warm, low, flickering, almost free of blue. A candle or a warm, dim lamp in the last hour echoes that ancient dusk. It is not about going backward, only about giving your senses the kind of light they evolved to meet at night. A small, warm glow can turn an ordinary evening into a signal for sleep. Something in the question has quietly turned. We began by asking how the evening's light was stealing your deep sleep. But night after night, it looks less like theft and more like a message never sent. The light did not take your rest. Your evenings had simply stopped telling your body that dusk had come. What remains is not a thing to fear, but a signal to give back, softly and on your own terms. Melatonin is not a switch you have to flip. It is a tide that rises on its own. Given a dim, warm evening, your body brews it faithfully, hour by hour, without any effort from you. The kindest thing you can do is simply stop washing it away with bright light. Lower the glow, and the tide comes in. Quiet, unforced, exactly as it has for every night of your life. Not everyone meets the light the same way. The young are more sensitive, their clocks more easily shifted, older eyes, a little clouded, let less blue through and feel it less. Some people scarcely notice a late-night screen, while others lie awake for hours. If you are sensitive, that is not a flaw, only a reason to be gentler with your evenings. Knowing your own rhythm is its own quiet wisdom. When people spend days outdoors, away from artificial light, something lovely happens. Their clocks drift back toward the sun. Melatonin begins to rise near sunset. Sleep comes earlier. Mornings feel easier. It is proof that your rhythm is not broken, only pulled, and that it returns to nature the moment it is allowed. You need not go camping to borrow the lesson. Simply let your evenings dim toward the dark, and your body remembers. You do not need a perfect evening to sleep well. Biology is forgiving. It responds to the general shape of your days far more than to any single lapse. A bright night now and then will not undo you. What matters is the gentle average. Mostly dim evenings, mostly bright mornings, mostly steady hours. Aim for kindness rather than precision, and let the small imperfections go. Your body is far more resilient than the worry suggests. It helps to remember that light was never your enemy. It is simply information, the oldest signal your body knows, telling it whether to wake or to rest. Blue light is not harmful. It is only midday's message arriving at midnight. When you warm and dim your evenings, you are not fighting the light. You are correcting a small misunderstanding, letting the right message reach you at the right hour. Nothing here needs to be feared. 2 quiet systems carry you towards sleep. One counts the hours you have been awake, building a gentle pressure to rest. The other, your inner clock, watches the light and decides when that rest should fall. Give them a dim evening and a bright morning, and they work together beautifully, without any effort from you. You are not making sleep happen. You are only stepping softly out of its way. A small ritual can do more than any single fix. Lowering the lights, warming their color, setting the screen aside, done softly each night. These become a signal your body learns to trust. The routine matters as much as the light itself. Your nervous system reads repetition as safety, and safety is where sleep begins. Let the dimming become a familiar doorway, one you pass through gently at the same quiet hour. If tonight has already been bright, be easy with yourself. One late evening, one glowing screen, will not steal your sleep for good. Your clock is patient. A single bright morning tomorrow can set it right again. Rest is not a fragile thing you might break with one mistake. It is a rhythm that returns, forgiving and steady, as long as you keep coming back to it. Tonight is simply tonight. The evening was always meant for winding down. As the light fades, your body has, for countless generations, begun to loosen, the pulse slowing, the mind quieting, the day releasing its grip. Giving your evening back its dusk is not a chore, but a homecoming. You are returning to something your biology has always known how to do. Let the light grow soft, and let yourself grow soft along with it. And so we arrive, gently, at the whole of it. You don't have to fear the light. You only have to give your evening back its dusk, dim and warm and slow, and trust the rest to happen without you. Your body remembers, all on its own, how to fall into deep and easy sleep. It has been waiting, patiently, all this time. Tonight, you can simply let it. 100 quiet facts ago, we asked how the evening's light was stealing your deep sleep. Now the answer has softened into something you can hold. We followed the blue signal from your screen to the timekeeping cells in your eyes, and found that dimming and warming the last hour mattered more than any filter. We learned that the strongest lever was not at night at all, but in the bright light of morning. What began as something to fear became something to simply adjust. A dusk to give back, an evening to let grow gentle. The light was never the thief. Your evening had only forgotten how to become night. And now you know the smallest way to remind it. Softly, warmly, whenever you choose. If this slow hour softened your evening and quieted the worry about screens and sleep, you might leave a gentle like, subscribe, or share it with someone lying awake in a too bright room tonight. It helps another restless soul find this quiet. One quiet tap, one peaceful night at a time. Picture the sky at dusk, the blue slowly draining from it, leaving only warm amber low on the horizon. That same fading is happening in you now, the day's bright signal quietly leaving your body. Melatonin rising like the coming dark. You did nothing to summon it. Let your whole self dissolve into that fading light, into the warm and easy dark. There was never anything here to fear, only an evening becoming night. You can let these thoughts dim now, the way the last light leaves the sky, slowly, and without any effort. Let your shoulders grow heavy and warm against the bed. If sleep comes, let it carry you into the soft dark your body has been brewing all evening. These quiet hours have dimmed the light across many nights, and the next follows a question this one left resting. What else does your body already know how to do in the dark? All on its own. That hour is waiting whenever you are ready. But if your eyes are closed, stay there. Rest now. You don't have to fear the light, and you don't have to do anything at all. Sleepy science will keep the dusk soft for you. Good night.